I'll just say hello from my end, I guess. This is Randall Warnes, and obviously I am co-presenting with Kelly Broadbeck from Teledyne FLIR, and this is their webinar, so I don't want to hijack it. The only thing I'll say is questions are like the reason you should be here. We're going to present content and give you updates on, what's going on with SIRAS, what the product is, but we're only giving you stuff that is on our minds. So if there are things that are on your mind, if you could throw it in the question section, that gives us the greatest ability to see what things are maybe out in the market that we don't know as far as needing answers or easy answers to, as well as it makes it valuable for you. So even if someone could just throw a test question in there and just say hi, or ask me my favorite color, whatever, just to make sure it's working, that'd be great. But thank you for being here. Excited about the product, excited to be presenting with Kelly. So Kelly, I guess I'll leave it to you, and those questions are coming through. Thank you.
Excellent. And yeah, we by design made this set of content a little bit short, with the opportunity for us to tell stories from the field, things that we're learning with SIRAS and how people are reacting to it. The last time Randall and I did a webinar, we had a lot of technical content and really didn't have enough time for questions. So we've designed it to be very interactive this time. So let's start. Randall, actually, the first one is one that I want you to talk about because it's a little bit more market oriented. This is a screenshot from a news broadcast in Florida where SIRAS is getting a lot of attention. I've gone ahead and circled the drone in the air with the white circle. But why don't we start by talking about Florida and regulations and what you guys at Enterprise UAS, DSLR Pros are seeing in places like Florida.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that when the idea for SIRAS was born, this is while I was still part of the Teledyne FLIR organization, and we were talking about where gaps are in the market. And for a drone that is slightly larger with a little bit of payload space underneath, we thought we could make some advanced payloads that FLIR really has specialized in for decades, 40 to 50 years. And where we see the greatest need is, looking at the geopolitical landscape, especially in the United States, and looking at NDA compliance and basically this movement away from Chinese manufactured drones, we saw an avenue that we could build a product. And where we're seeing the most traction out the gate is in Florida with public safety agencies. For those that don't know, there's regulations that are keeping government funds from being used to purchase drones that are manufactured in China. And that the initial legislation was written that it would only allow blue UAS drones to be purchased. That changed, I believe it was December 14th, that changed and opened up the floodgates for Florida agencies to buy this sub $10,000 thermal imaging drone from a manufacturer that's been around for a long time. And we're seeing a lot of adoption there. So Port St. Lucie is one of our customers who is an early adopter, has switched out their fleet to be flying SIRAS. And like Kelly said, we were able to get some news coverage for the use of the product in different search use cases.
And is this a Florida thing or these regulations?
So Florida was the first to adopt regulations like this. There's an ongoing speculation of different states that will follow suit, and hopefully will follow suit in the same way of not making it only specific to the blue list, but opening that up to other manufacturers. I think that that's sensible. And I will say country of origin, to me, just to be true to myself, I don't think is the right way to go about these sorts of regulations. But regardless of what I think, there's rumor that Oklahoma is not far behind, Texas, Michigan, and even, more liberal leaning states. California has looked at things like this. Massachusetts has looked at things like this. So it's kind of a phenomenon that could sweep the country. But right now, Florida is by far the most entrenched in it.
Got it. Right. Well, we certainly appreciate the folks at Port St. Lucie PD. They've been great. Their local news gave it a lot of good coverage. So that is available on YouTube. I encourage folks to search for it. I think if you just put Port St. Lucie drone into YouTube, a whole bunch of SIRAS content will come up, and it's very interesting stuff. There's also, oh, rats. This is not advancing. There we go. Maybe I just have to push harder.
Take a second.
Plenty of trade industry press as well. Various articles are out there. When you start marketing a new product like this, you reach out to media. We have media coming to us and saying, you know, what's going on with this? What's popular? We're getting a lot of questions about it. And frankly, we've never heard of SIRAS before. So what has everyone talking? I think one of the big drivers is price. Certainly the data security and independence that SIRAS enables the pilots. And of course, the great Teledyne FLIR imagery, particularly thermal, but also the visible. So this is sort of the outline that I want to talk about today. The price is, under $10,000, as Randall mentioned. And one guy said, gosh, I'm looking at the thermal camera on this drone, and it's amazing. And you guys used to sell thermal cameras for $10,000. Now you get a whole drone attached to it. It's great. So this is one of the big drivers and why people really need to pay attention to SIRAS. I just wanted to touch on what's in the box, so to speak. So, and some of these are hardware and some of them are features. One thing that's relatively new in the last couple of months and very important is the remote ID. So SIRAS is remote ID compliant. We got the FAA's approval. So when you buy a SIRAS, there'll be a sticker on the bottom with some code numbers that is basically the FAA registration number for SIRAS. What remote ID is, it's basically the license plate for the individual drone. So SIRAS has a little chip in it that broadcasts certain information about the drone, who it is, what its number is, and telemetry information, how it's flying, how fast, where the controller is, the things that are required by the remote ID standard. That will broadcast out to about 500 to 600 feet. So it's not broadcasting miles away, but it's designed to enable law enforcement or perhaps firefighters that are doing a wildland fire. People show up with drones, and it's really, it interferes with aircraft operations. So this is all intended to help police the airspace and let everybody know, who's up there, who's flying, and make sure people are complying with the law. So SIRAS is fully compliant with remote ID. We have a controller that I'll talk a little bit more about. It's encrypted. Everybody has an encrypted controller, but we have some special features about that. The payload is swappable. You can pull the payload off in about 2 seconds and put it back on in 2 seconds. It's the first payload is our View TV 128 camera. It's EOIR, so 16 megapixel visible camera. We do have a 20 megapixel mapping mode that I'll talk about later, but the default setting for the visible camera is 16 megapixels. We'll take a look at what that all looks like. And then a boson high resolution thermal camera, 640 by 512, is also on the first payload.
And important to note there, Kelly, is that it's a radiometric payload as well. I know that maybe, if someone's coming from XT2 days, we've had different flavors, different variations where some were just for qualitative analysis, but this is quantitative as well, where you are getting temperature measurements from the camera.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I just kind of take it for granted these days, and everything we do is radiometric. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I'll show some radiometric data later on in the deck here. The hot swappable batteries. This is sort of an interesting story. When we were designing SIRAS, we had the choice to put one big battery into this that would actually be a little bit lighter and give us a little bit more flight time, or have two batteries that would enable the hot swappability, but would cost a little bit of flight time. SIRAS is at 30 minutes of flight time. Maybe we could have gotten 35 to 40 with a single big battery. But we're all about listening to our customers, and we did a lot of market research on this before we designed anything. What people were saying is, look, if I've got one battery, I got to bring it down. Maybe I get extra 5 minutes out of it, but bring it down, turn it off, put the new second battery in, start it all up again and go. It's just not worth the time to me. So with SIRAS, you land, you swap out the batteries, and you're up again in well less than a minute. And that is so valuable to people to keep their missions going without have to power down the aircraft. It's kind of like a NASCAR pit stop. We time each other. How fast can you swap out the batteries and get in and out of the pits? It's really quick with SIRAS, and so people are really pleased by that. Of course, we have a battery charger with the whole thing. The soft pack, I wanted to make a point on that. It's basically, it's foam and fabric. We looked at the hard case. There are some companies out there. Randall's company is developing a hard case, and we'll at some point validate one of those and recommend it for use with SIRAS. There's actually a couple that are in the works, but we designed it initially the way we did because we want people to be able to travel with it. SIRAS is kind of sort of a Goldilocks kind of drone in the sense that it's not as small as, say, a Mavic or an Evo, which are easy to throw in a backpack and just go. It's bigger than those, but it's not so big that you can't travel with it. I go all over the country with SIRAS. I put it in the overhead compartment on an airplane. The weight of it is very light. You just put the backpack on, and it's quite comfortable to move around with. Unlike something that's bigger, like a M300 or something that's just big and heavy, it's like a piece of luggage. And so we think SIRAS is that nice sweet spot between too small or too big. And the soft pack really facilitates movement with it.
Yeah, and just on the size, like I mentioned before, there is this gap that is larger than Mavic but smaller than M300 that SIRAS addresses. Like you mentioned, it's a rare thing, and I think that being able to utilize the greater lift capacity, the more space that you have to build payloads, this really enables what SIRAS can be in the future. Part of my feedback to Teledyne FLIR as this product has been developed, and I think through the market research as well, has been that departments and users want to build on an airframe for their future. It's the constant release of new products it makes it more difficult to standardize a program. And so as you're hearing all these things, realize that SIRAS is an expanding ecosystem. It is something that is not going to be the same today than it will be 6 months or a year from now. It'll be the same platform, but you'll just be able to do more. And I think that that's why it's built as it's built. And that's why remote ID was enabled from the beginning, even though those regulations aren't fully enforced.
Right. And this is getting at the swappable payload as well. And one aircraft that will last you for years. And as your needs change, your missions become more complicated or specialized, there'll be payloads that you can put on there that'll enable you to do more than the basics of the first payload. So right. Yeah, it's an ecosystem, it's a toolbox.
And another thing that you said that I'll just touch on is through my experiences, I've heard enough feedback about drones. My drone is fine, but I no longer can fly it because I can't get batteries. I think it's something that I'm saying now. We hear you loud and clear that what battery availability is important to make this so that you can use this same product for years to come. It's all part of listening to customers, and it's all part of finding the right manufacturer that is actually going to step up to the plate and not force you to upgrade to a new airframe because they no longer make batteries. That is a common practice, but it's something that at least us saying it now,
we're committed to not doing that.
Exactly.
I don't want a whole bunch of SKUs to manage, right?
Right. We've shipped SIRAS now for 2 months, so it's maybe a little early to put that commitment out in the world and have it mean something. But the idea is that this product is about evolving into a mature, multifaceted, multi-mission airframe And that's to Kelly's and Teledyne FLIR's restraint for not trying to be more than what it can be at any given time and overpromise, but also to be committed to expanding the airframe and making it more valuable year over year, definitely month after month.
Yep. Okay, so what else are people talking about? Independent security and fast deployment. I love this picture. It's not some marketing thing that was staged. This is from the field. We had to blot out the particular department that it was from in order for us to use it, but they were otherwise happy for us to use it. The colors and all that were really cool. But there's a whole story around this event, and it really ties in nicely with our claims here. This was a situation where there was a domestic violence situation. Felon basically visiting a girlfriend that he wasn't supposed to, ran out of the house, was in the neighborhood at night, and the police are looking for him. They were flying another drone, and it was taking forever to get it up in the air because it was geofence. They had to call for permission to take off from the location where they were. So they called for SIRAS to be brought in. It was brought to the scene. They had it up in the air in less than 2 minutes from opening up the box, opening up the soft pack. And so this lack of geofencing is what enables the fast deployment. But then they were just completely delighted. A number of the officers had not flown SIRAS before, and they're just kind of tripping on the clarity of the thermal imagery. And some of that I'll show you. They were just delighted with it. And it was like, hey, we got to find this guy. And they were able to do that. The other drone they were flying had the same resolution sensor, a 640 by 512 thermal sensor, but just not as clear as what they got with SIRAS. So they were quite pleased. This is this whole world for us of, you guys are in control. We don't want to restrict the pilots. This is not a hobbyist drone. We trust you to know what you're doing and to be professional. And we have not built a lot of, nannyism into the product. You guys are in control of this. There's no Wi-Fi connection. Your data goes nowhere other than onto the SD card that's on the drone. Now that does make certain things a little, there's an extra step, for example, in getting a map. You can't connect to the internet with this to download a map, but you can go to our website, download a map onto your SD card, and then put that into your controller. That's how that works. So no Wi-Fi connection. You don't have to set up an account. Teledyne's not watching who you are, what you're taking pictures of. There's no data that we can look at. Any drone that puts your data into their cloud or the cloud, that data is at risk. You don't know who's looking at it. There are some companies, there's a lot of concerns about what they do with data and where it's going. The other thing that's important is there's no subscription. It's like, this is your drone, this is your data. You don't have to pay us a fee every month in order to look at your stuff. So quick deployment, you're totally in control. That's what SIRAS is all about. And the conclusion of this story is they found the guy. He was hopping fences, so he's eluding the canine patrol. But they were able to follow him with SIRAS. They also commented they like going back and forth, even though this was night. They used the visible camera to kind of get their situational awareness, their bearings. What part of the neighborhood are we in? Sometimes you lose that perspective with thermal only. So they bounced back and forth between the two, followed the guy until they got him. So this was a huge success story for SIRAS. Any other comments on this, Randall, the design here?
I mean, no, I think that it speaks for itself as far as addressing data security by not needing to address data security. I think it's, the fact that it's your data on an SD card, you know how to access that data. It does make things that maybe other drone systems you're used to, like third-party apps and stuff like that, a little bit of a different dance that we're working through to figure out the best workflow. But all said and done, I mean, this is about data capture, remote data capture, and and it's straightforward, it's simple, and it can get through some of that red tape that other drones get stuck in much more easily.
Yep. All right, so let's look at some video. I've got two thermal videos here. If you've seen Teledyne FLIR payloads in the past in the UAS space, this is new. This is a higher level of image quality, and for very deliberate reasons. So let's just take a look. Here on the left, we have, we're at about 150 feet in the air. We're easily 150 feet away from the target. When I started this video, you see nobody's looking up going, oh, what's that? There's a drone there. I mean, we're out of earshot of everybody. This is a hotel. We're flying over trees. We're just pulled up. There's one thing at the end that I want to show. See if I can do this again. And I'm just going to advance it to here. Watch in the upper right, right up in here. Randall, can you see the cursor?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to advance this. Boom. See how this guy's reflection is in the window? That's not his visible reflection. That is the heat coming off his body, hitting the window and then being reflected 150 feet in the air and however many feet back we are. That's how sensitive this camera is. Every little detail is seen. And that's, you know, for this price point, that's an amazing level of thermal happenings.
Yeah, definitely. And I would think that if people have been following aerial thermal imaging for the past 7-8 years, I mean, I've been kind of at the forefront of that. You've seen thermal images if you've interacted, but this is next level thermal, and none of this stuff is MSX, right? Nothing we're seeing here.
Nothing here is MSX. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yep.
Over here on the right, we have, this is a bit staged, so we're not, this is actually me and one of my best engineers just doing a little simulation here. But this is about 80 feet in the air, maybe 80 feet back. And just more example of the kind of clarity you get. We've got officers using this tailgate events, like for concerts or football games. And they get at this sort of elevation and they want to see, you know, what's going on out in the parking lot. So we thought this was an appropriate scene to replicate. I'm not getting an Academy Award for my performance, so it's disappointing to hear that.
I don't know how convincing you are as a drug dealer, but I think that it still shows the purpose. And another interesting thing to note, in the early days when most people were thermal imaging illiterate in the drone space, we would often talk about famous use cases for aerial thermal imaging. And one was the Boston Marathon bombing. And they found the guy in a boat, which was covered by a boat cover. That tarp that you're seeing at the bottom, if there were a person laying underneath that tarp with what you were showing with that, what looked like a reflection in that window, the heat will permeate through that. So it's kind of like thermal 101. Clearly you could see people. Those words you're seeing on the wall are not because you could see the writing, but because the heat signature is different, because black and white or different colors absorb heat differently. So there's this video is actually really interesting from a thermal imaging, like how it works, what it does perspective. And there's a lot of ways that this story of why thermal imaging is important could be told just from this single video.
Yep. So keeping with our theme of the power of thermal, take a look at this picture. Visible, this is SIRAS, 50 feet in the air. You can see the highway over there on the side. So let's ignore the highway and ask the question, is other than the grass and the trees, is there anything alive in this picture? What do you see? I think the answer is, yeah, I don't know, right? Doesn't look like there's much there at all. When you layer in the thermal from SIRAS, suddenly all these bright dots show up. And what that is a herd of cows. Now, granted, maybe some people will use SIRAS for wildlife management and whatnot, but mostly this is search and rescue looking for people, and cows are bigger than people. But I think this is pretty impressive because those cows are more than a half a mile away, and I'll flip back. They're really difficult to see out on the horizon there. But with a SIRAS thermal imager, the View TV 128, they pop out really quick. And if you're looking for a person, maybe up a little bit higher, looking down, you're going to see a long way with the boson camera that's on this thing. It's amazing. But what else do we have? Well, SIRAS, people ask all the time, how'd you come up with the name? It actually stands for something, and that is Secure Infrared Aerial System. That's what SIRAS means. But we don't want people to lose sight of the fact that it has a great visible camera on it as well. And we wanted to know, well, how good is it? You know, we're the world leaders in thermal, but how did we do in the design of the visible camera? So we hired a lab called Optipax in Silicon Valley, and they've got a whole test set up, and they do a bunch of measurements on a standard color chart. And they looked at a whole bunch of drones. And this graphic on the right is an illustration of all the equations. And I actually had a page of equations to show all you guys, to show just how complicated this is. And Randall's like, take that out. No one wants to see your differential equations. But basically, the truer you are to the real world wavelengths or color, the closer those circles and squares will be. And all this comes down to an equation, a couple of equations, the most important of which is this delta E mean, which says the lower your number, it's kind of like golf, the truer you are to actual color. So we compared against the market leader, one of their more recent product offerings. And we found that, you know, SIRAS has been tuned with a truer color level than the market leader. Now they can tune it however they want. They do what they do. But we think we did pretty good is really the point. And that shows up, I can illustrate that with a couple of things. Just on the right is SIRAS, on the left is this market leader. And you can see, you know, the pink looks pink compared to this one. This lime green is more saturated and colorful. The blue is a truer blue than this darker one. But the real proof is in the pudding here. And this is, again, is the same video, but this time invisible. And you can see lots of colors going on here, and it looks great. It looks fine. The contrast is good. So yeah, buy SIRAS because we're the leaders in thermal, and SIRAS is a great drone, but know that the visible imagery that you're going to get out of it is going to make you really happy. You're going to get great video, great pictures.
And something that I'll note, and this is just a webinar experience speaking, is that what you're seeing is obviously a video that is now compressed to be shown during a live stream. You're not seeing the quality or clarity of what the video looks like on Kelly's screen, who's showing it. So any pixelation, like we could show you sample imagery that isn't hosted on a webinar, and you could get a better idea of what that looks like. This is purely for colorization purposes.
Right. Are you seeing pixelation on your end?
I mean, like it's not normal, and there's sometimes like a little bit of a latency or like a little bit of a lag or jumpiness on videos when you show them over webinar, and it's just not as smooth as what you would see.
On my screen, it looks great.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
all right, well, let's move on to MSX. This is a proprietary FLIR technology. So we're going to kind of move away from surveillance and law enforcement, public safety applications, more toward inspection. So MSX takes visible and thermal images and combines them so that you end up with a combined picture with a lot of content on it, and it makes your workflow simpler, and it makes it easier to integrate a drone like SIRAS into your workflows. This is a black and white picture. If you own a SIRAS right now, this is what you'd see if you engage the MSX. We're about to push out a firmware update where these visible pictures in MSX mode will be in color, but that's what it is right now. So I need to take pictures of my my storage tanks. And you want to do that with thermal for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which is finding leaks and problems on the ground, problems with pipes. One thing that folks tell me they love seeing the fill level. So this tank is about half full. This one is maybe 20% full. This one even less. You can see that with a thermal image, and help make sure that all your measuring sensors on the tanks are working correctly. But you lose the markings. This one, you maybe kind of make out what the numbers are, but with MSX, you can clearly see that's tank 2304. And okay, we've got 4 tanks in this picture, but some of these tank farms in Texas and Oklahoma might have hundreds and hundreds of tanks, and you can get lost. If you're going out and taking thermal pictures and you're just seeing that, you can lose track of which one is which, and it makes for a lot more work to manage everything. So with the MSX, you're able to organize things much more quickly and efficiently for your reports. You have less pictures to retain because all the information is here. Another similar story, power lines. If you're just going out looking at transformers on poles, you have one to do, okay, no big deal. But if you've got thousands of them to do and you're taking thermal pictures looking for things that are hot, you'll get a great thermal picture like this, but you have no idea which transformer that is. So you have to take a visible picture, you have to store them together. You can see that that's transformer 0518440. But if you're just looking at the thermals, you lose that. Obviously with MSX, you're going to pick that up. So this is just a nice feature that only we have. It makes integrating SIRAS into your workflow a lot easier to do. Okay, radiometric features. This is our one of our flying areas. We like this little solar panel. It has issues and birds get on it, so there's always interesting things happening. Radiometry. Here's a thermal picture if you're inspecting a solar farm. Radiometry is really helpful in diagnosing, do I really have a problem or not? And what's going on, this little bit of bird dropping here is causing some unusual heat signatures. That's interesting. Obviously, we have a cell here that's hot. The question is it just a little bit warmer than everything else, or is it a lot warmer such that it's a problem? And that's where our radiometry comes in. So SIRAS is loaded with 3 features. One we call region of interest. So it will, when you're in this mode, it will point out the hottest thing that it sees and give you the temperature, as well as the coldest and an average across the thing. 37.6, that's a little warm, but that's actually not problematic. So this is telling an inspector, keep an eye on it, but don't panic. Whereas if you didn't have that content, you might dispatch a work order that maybe you don't need to do right now. Has a spot meter. I like using the region of interest because lining up the spot meter on a target that small is a little difficult. It can be done. For big targets, the spot meter is like a roof inspection, a very helpful thing to have. And we also do, let me move this little banner. I have something blocking. There we go.
Yeah, that's been there the whole time. It's still there. I don't know what that was. I was wondering if it was just me that could see that.
Oh, yeah, get out of the way.
It's up top.
Yeah, I moved it. So the isotherm. Now, in full disclosure, this isotherm picture was taken on a different day from all the rest of what's on here. But an isotherm allows you to set a temperature threshold, and anything that's hotter than that threshold will show up as red. Anything cooler will show up as blue. So here we have our little problem cell on this solar panel showing up just as it should. So very, very useful tool.
Yeah, and I'll just add to this that within aerial thermal imaging, the public safety use case is very clear what that is: finding people in wooded areas, flying a drone higher than the trees or without having to navigate difficult areas. But solar inspection is probably the one use case that is more clear cut than maybe anything else on the planet using aerial thermal imaging, because drones are 6 to 10 times faster or more efficient in getting the data. The data is a lot more reliable. So as like kind of a standard practice, if you're doing something or interested in doing something with solar inspection, drones have completely taken over as the industry standard way of doing those inspections. And that's why solar is a very nice way to illustrate the power of thermal, because things that you can't see with the naked eye, you don't even need to know how solar panels work to look at that image on the left and see, or any of these images, and see that there's an issue.
Something to be mindful of, something to inspect.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so wrapping up, what's next? What do we have? We have a series of firmware updates. Probably the series. We have two. So one is, for those of you who have SIRAS already, we'll push out in the next couple of weeks. Just adjustments to our flight control software that makes SIRAS even more reliable in heavy wind conditions. Some little tricks that we've found. So we'll be pushing that out. This is like if you want to fly at 30 miles an hour or more. It's something we actually don't recommend, but we know public safety does that and has to do that. So we're optimizing a few things there. But in April, we'll have a features update. So I've shown you MSX pictures, and what we'll have next is the video portion. So what we call streaming MSX. We're going to come out with our 20 megapixel mapping mode. And we'll probably do some papers, maybe another webinar just around this, but 20 megapixels is the resolution that we need for high level mapping. And we've got the software ready to go that enables folks who do that for a living to experience what they're typically used to experiencing. And then FLIR Thermal Studio, that's a software from us. Right now, SIRAS kind of works with FLIR Thermal Studio and kind of doesn't. And the reason why there are issues is the software on the thermal camera, the boson, is relatively new. You've seen how cool it is, but the FLIR Thermal Studio needs to catch up. Its software needs to catch up with what the SIRAS is doing. So we have some adjustments to make, and that'll be coming out in the near future. And then, of course, more payloads later this year and next year. We really do intend for this to be a toolbox with swappable payloads that you can customize to your own workflows and work situations. So with that, I think we have a bunch of questions, and we're shipping now. You get together with Randall's team at DSLR Pros. There's the website address with inquiries. And little picture, you can go to FLIR.com/SIRAS for more product information about it. But Randall, what do you think about some questions?
So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the chat a link from the last webinar Kelly and I did. There's some questions in here about like things that we've covered in the past, and I'm happy to answer them again. But if there's something that you're just trying to revisit, what is the product? What are the specs? Somebody asked about obstacle avoidance and how that's done. What things are in the product? You could watch that webinar if you want to revisit it. But again, any questions that are on that you asked here today, we'll answer real time. And if we don't have time for them, then we'll send a Q&A recap. But I'm just going to start going through the questions.
Yeah, let me do the obstacle avoidance really quick, because that's important. It's radar based, it's front based. The default setting is off, right? So you're in control of this drone. There's also a variety of sensors underneath. So it looks down and it looks ahead of itself. When the return to home feature is engaged, the collision avoidance automatically comes on. You have to turn it off if you don't want it on. But otherwise, it's there. It's easy to turn on from the main control screen. I like flying without it because I like doing what I like doing. But it will look forward out to 100 feet, and there's a speed limitation on it of 5 meters per second. So if you're flying at that speed or less, it's quite effective at stopping the drone when it detects pretty much anything, even netting. So if you prefer to fly that way, it's certainly there for you.
Perfect. So somebody asked about kind of the compliance question, the NDA compliance, or if, the blue question. I think it's worth addressing where the mindset of Teledyne FLIR in making this drone what it is without adding on unnecessary costs. Can you kind of walk through that, Kelly?
Yeah, well, with regard to the National Defense Authorization Act, the key provision of that is it's a rather long list of mostly Chinese companies. There's a couple that are incorporated in Hong Kong, which I suppose these days is China. Anyway, there's a long list of companies that you just can't do business with. There is absolutely nothing in SIRAS. There's no components, not even a resistor or a capacitor that comes from any of those many companies. The rest of the parts, they're sourced from various countries that are all fine as far as the US government is concerned. We haven't yet registered it as NDA compliant. There are pluses and minuses to doing that. Randall kind of touched on cost. So I would say functionally, we don't buy anything that's on the banned list. The product is safe and secure, but it's not NDAA listed at this point.
Perfect. And I think that, like I mentioned, there's reason to do it when the federal government or state by state or internationally when there's a greater reason to do it, maybe this happens. But I think that when you start moving your supply chains from one place to another, you start adding more costs. When you get regulators involved, it slows the process. And I think that right now, Kelly, you seem focused on putting out the best commercially available product that you possibly can and making sure the features are there rather than the certification of federal agencies, right?
Yeah, and I would absolutely, and I'd say for military use, Teledyne FLIR has a variety of drone products that we sell, and those meet higher levels of NDAA compliance. So that's where we would direct you. This is a commercial drone. This is for inspection. This is for local law enforcement. This is for mapping, those sorts of applications.
Right. And somebody asked about international shipping, and I'll take this question just so we can get ahead of it, and you can correct me if your opinion on this is wrong. But this product, as of right now, is made for a North American user. The charger is going to be a North American outlet adapter. Can it be changed? Possibly, but just know that this product is made for a North American based user. Because it has thermal imaging cameras on it that are dual use, it is regulated by the Department of Commerce. And with that, anywhere outside of maybe Canada, you have to have an export license. We, as the exclusive master distributor of SIRAS, are taking on opportunities to ship these internationally with Teledyne FLIR's guidance, as well as, well, guidance is probably the wrong word, with Teledyne FLIR's blessing on these instances. Some of them are complex as far as the users. Some of them are complex as far as where the person is located. But the thing you need to first take in is, one, it was made for a North American user. It has been certified to be used in North America by way of battery, radio transmission, etc. We can't guarantee that is the case in the place that you live. So if you want to own or use SIRAS and you are not in the United States and Canada, we have to have the conversation of what regulations are in place to say what radio frequencies you can use, what battery management is necessary to be legal. And once we work through those things, we can make that happen. But we're working with partners in Singapore, Australia, Japan, the UK, talking about different aspects of these certifications. Some of them are quick, some of them take a lot of time. Right now, this is a North American based product that is applicable internationally, just needs to be certified. Kelly, any more color on that?
I would just say that here at Teledyne FLIR, we're very actively looking at expanding the distribution of SIRAS globally. And we'll do that through our distribution partners in compliance with all laws. So we're working on it. And I think everything Randall said is correct. They're our master distributor, and they're talking to folks about how to push it around the world.
Perfect. Somebody asked about how many color palettes are on the Cyrus. I couldn't give a number, but if you could just throw
The
out either a number or which ones are
for the
available.
infrared
For the
color
IR,
palette.
yeah.
Oh, I think it's 6 or 7. White hot, black hot, iron bow, rainbow, and 3 others that I never use. I
Yeah,
almost exclusively film in white hot. It's just how my brain works for thermal. But
right.
there's a number of them, and certainly the most popular.
Perfect. Somebody asked if this is a radiometric camera. I'm just going to say yes, so that's out of the way. Somebody asked if the batteries are smart. I will say yes to that as well, unless Kelly, you want to just go deeper into that. But yeah, they tell you how much charge they have. They show you an indicator by lights, all that stuff. But do you want to add any more to that?
I would say these batteries have gone to high school, and the next generation of batteries will have gone to college. They'll be even smarter.
Yeah,
So when I think of smart batteries, it's like batteries that heat themselves in a cold place. These do not do that yet. So there'll be evolutions to the batteries. There'll be evolutions to the aircraft. Won't be wholly, a different aircraft. It'll just be improvements that will be made over time. And the batteries are smart, and they'll get smarter.
right. Somebody asked about outporting video from the controller. So they specifically asked about HDMI. Is that the only way that you could get data from the controller to a screen that you can show more people than what can fit around the screen? And there was a second question, so I'll loop two. How big is the monitor or the screen that's built into the controller? You could take both on at the same time.
I'm holding one in my hand. It's 6x3 is the size of the monitor, or sorry, the display. HDMI out is the way you do it, and it's the way we do it. Works quite well. When we want to record, either share with others or record what's on the screen, HDMI out to a laptop is how we do that.
Perfect. Somebody asked how this payload compares to the Hadron 640 that's used by Teal, and I think it's a really smart question. Clearly, they've done their homework on where components are sourced and what it is. So, how is the H20? Sorry, nope, wrong thing.
TV.
How is the TV 128 different than the Hadron that's being used by Teal?
So they're basically the same thing, but the SIRAS. The boson cameras and their capabilities are identical. The EO camera on SIRAS, as I mentioned, is 16 megapixels. That's because the processor on the drone can handle 16 megapixels. In a mapping mode, it can handle up to 20 megapixels of data, but the sensor itself is 64 megapixels. And so Teal takes full advantage of that with their products. There'll be future versions of SIRAS with beefier microprocessors where we'll get more megapixels out of the Hadron. But they're basically the same thing. It's just how the data is managed. That said, when we zoom with the SIRAS, we do put more pixels on target with the EO camera because the pixels are there for us to use. So as we're grabbing pictures and blowing them up, which is what you're doing when you're zooming, at least the first couple of steps of zoom, we don't lose any resolution. We still have plenty of pixels available for us to grab and make pictures out of.
Right. And I'll say also, something we didn't mention here is Vivid IR, which is something that FLIR is working on, and you can do your own research on what that is. But there is some processing of the imagery from the payload that's different. The payload itself, as far as the camera system, the hardware that builds it, without the gimbal, just the payload, the Hadron component of it is the same.
Right. And Hadron is one of our latest and greatest integration modules. If you're building your own drone, give us a call. That's a great payload to incorporate. Lots of flexibility.
Staying on the topic of payload, somebody asked if there's plans to introduce a higher megapixel regular RGB camera. They said regular camera, but without, roadmap is always a thing that you can't just be like, yeah, here's exactly when you can expect it and what it's going to look like. But I'll say from my perspective, loud and clear, it's probably the feedback I gave Kelly at the very beginning is that there's a gap in the market that just wants a really good mapping payload, RGB payload. It's something being looked at. Kelly, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but anything else you want to add to that as far as maybe what the roadmap looks like, things that you're hearing, things that you're looking at?
Well, our 20 megapixel mapping payload is coming out with our next firmware update. So people can look at how good that is and how excited they are about it. We think it's pretty good. As far as more cowbell, if you will, if you know that expression, in the EO, one of my priorities is doing better with mega zoom. So with any camera, when you digitally zoom it, you just lose resolution. I think SIRAS is pretty good up to, 5, 10, 20x. Those are beautiful pictures. When you get up to 120 something X, it's fuzzier than I want it to be. And there's some drone technology out there, zoom technology, that's a little better. And I don't like that as the product manager. So we're actually working on that quite rigorously now. And when I refer to future payloads, this is part of what I'm talking about, is making a noticeable difference when you're really zoomed up, having great clarity, read a license plate from space kind of stuff is kind of the concept.
Perfect. And I just want to take a minute. We still have, 10 minutes or so that we can keep doing questions. And honestly, if however long you fill up to it, Kelly, we can keep going into it. I do want to remind everyone, any question that gets asked here that isn't answered live, we will go through and put together a FAQ, or sorry, a Q&A recap, send that out kind of as an FAQ afterwards. So right now, I think we still have 70 questions that are in queue. So we're going to try to work through what we can, but I don't think we'll get to all of them. Just keep that in mind.
We got to write these things to last for like 10 minutes and then just let people ask questions.
Honestly. And then the other component is that afterwards, the GoToWebinar platform is the Zoom platform is going to send out a survey. That survey is really important to us to get feedback, what you like, what you don't like, what you wish the content would look like, where you're at with, looking at SIRAS compared to other things in the market. If you would respond to that survey, that is the one ask that I have as we continue to go through these, is that gives us information of who you are and what you're actually here for, because otherwise we're just shooting in the dark trying to give you what we can and responding to these questions. So that's just a plea. If you see it, just take the 2 minutes. Honestly, that's what it will take you, and it's really valuable for us. Back to questions. Someone asked, I actually saw this a few places. They were asking about RTK, and we can say right now, the SIRAS does not have RTK capacity. So that answers the question, but do you want to talk a little bit about kind of positioning, accuracy, all of those questions that would be, solved by RTK?
Yeah, I mean, these are features that will come with time, as it did with other companies that have had their drones out for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. We're tackling the basic needs that people say they want. Law enforcement, surveillance, firefighting, inspection, imaging for various scenarios. That's kind of the basic level. I think, one of the things that makes me uncomfortable about the drone industry is you see a lot of nichiness, a lot of products, a lot of software, certainly, but even a lot of drones that are just so specialized. And that becomes an affordability problem. You just have to have a fleet of drones for everything that you want to do. So we're building SIRAS to be a platform upon which a lot of things can be added. RTK would be one of them, and it's something that we look at. I'll probably the most common payload I get asked about all the time is LiDAR, which are big, heavy payloads. But we're Teledyne. We've been doing this for quite a while, so we're poking at things like LiDAR, RTK. We're a $5 billion company. We have lots of resources and lots of ability to bring these things to market, and we're working on it and we're prioritizing. Right now, we're just trying to take care of the basics and get SIRAS out there as an accepted platform, get some followers that love it, and build from there.
Exactly. And I think that, one thing you mentioned is that there are manufacturers that have been at this for a long time. Teledyne FLIR has other drones in its portfolio, but they're more government military oriented. Their engineers are extremely expensive, and therefore the products are expensive. This was handled in a different way. And the maturity of this product for the amount of time that has been dedicated to it is impressive. I think that we, as a partner of Teledyne FLIR, have been very careful to vet the product and not put something out that is not market ready. This product is market ready. It is shipping. It is being used by people protecting and serving your communities, as well as inspectors that are looking over your utilities and critical infrastructure already. So the maturity thing is, is this a 14,000 employee Chinese manufacturer that's been at it for decades? No, this is a company that has good resources as far as really smart people, budgetary expenditures that they can beef it up as needed. It's not going to go under. The company's not going to go under anytime soon. So you can really trust in taking this product on as it is. Today, it flies better than it flew back in October. Today, it does more things than it did back in December. Today, I feel more comfortable with sending the next unit out to a fire department or a police department than I did a month ago. And it's because of these continual improvements. Teledyne FLIR has a lot to lose by putting their name on any product. And so I will just say that for saying, where's RTK and where's all this compatibility stuff? What Kelly's working on is making it so that it's a reliable platform, that it doesn't have some of the issues that early products from any manufacturer experiences by learning from others' mistakes, as well as making sure that that payload is as clear and the data is as good as possible. And Kelly, I'm saying a lot of words, but if you want to exclamate any of that or question any of that, feel free.
No, I think it's all cool. And the other thing I'd say is we're very customer centric. So as people have questions, they see behaviors in the drone that they're like, I don't understand why it's doing this. We're not hard to find. We have a customer service portal. It all goes to me, and I personally deal with whatever issues are out there. We had a guy in Canada who received a unit, and one of the props was chipped, a little small chip, but he didn't like that. So we sent him out one right away, FedExed it overnight. Any issues you have, we want to talk to you, work through them really quick. We think that's our customer service is one of our big advantages, not just because it's the right thing to do, but frankly, it's how we learn and how we focus on improvements and new features and easier workflows that people want. So we see our relationship with end users as highly interactive and highly welcomed. And you'll get to know me personally. So
okay, so we have, as far as what we've set aside, like a minute or two. Kelly, are you down to do an extra 5 or so after?
Sure. Well, yeah.
You're good with that?
It's a little cloudy today. I don't think I'm going to go flying. So.
Yeah, sounds good. And then I will also take an opportunity. Somebody asked about a demo of the product. What I want to say is that if you already are purchasing drone technology, it is likely that your favorite drone reseller has access to this product. And if they don't, they can reach out to me. They can reach out to SIRAS at dslrpros.com and we can make that happen. So if you're saying, I want a demo, and if you have someone that's done that stuff for you in the past, let them know as like a first line of defense. If you want to see the product in person, you can go to Exponential, which is in Denver this year in May. That's the next place that's you're definitely going to be able to see one, but not demo it. It's not going to be flying there. So just note that. Also, we, DSLR Pros, we are the master exclusive distributor of this product. We do have people that go out and do demonstrations. We can either send demo units out if you have, you're far along in the process that that this is something you would consider soon. And that's just being fair. It's not for just, I wanted to check it out personally and thanks for the experience type stuff. And especially if you're a public safety agency, we'd love to be able to serve you, bring one in front of you, you invite your neighboring departments and we get it all done at once. Like those opportunities definitely get to the front of the line just because we're able to make a lot of impact. You joining this webinar, you have joined this, the early stage of this product, you're getting educated about something and we appreciate that. it's very difficult to educate a lot of people at once, especially, the drone market that's all focused on so many different industries and so many different places. So if you do have lead up or follow up questions, or if you are talking to people who bring this up, the product shipping, the product works, things are being addressed regularly on a weekly basis as far as things that you might want to see as bug fixes and stuff like that. So just know that all of those things are possible and that you can get more experience with the product if you just ask.
And I would add that we will be at, I believe it's called the Drone Energy Summit in Houston, and I believe that's early June.
Yeah.
And we will be flying there. So I think we'll have 3 units there, and you'll be able to take the controls and fly around. I think we have a cage demo as well, which are never, hovering over a mat isn't too exciting, but we will have a live fly event. It's a small gathering, but I think it's one of the best in the industry, frankly.
100%. Energy Drone Coalition and Robotics Summit in
There
Houston
you go.
is
What's the date?
I don't know. It's June. I think it's like June 11th or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. We'll be there. So come say hi. We'll have a booth. We'll be flying, probably do some panels. Love to meet you.
It is probably my favorite drone related show of the year. And that's not a knock to Exponential or Commercial UAV Expo. It's just so focused, so targeted. The information is like very little fluff. So if you haven't been, and if you are in the energy space, it's one definitely worth going to. Okay, so there's questions that are spec related. And again, I sent through the chat a YouTube video of the previous webinar, but Kelly, do you want to just run through IP rating, range from the controller, flight time?
IP54 range, 2 miles with a direct shot. Our spec says 6 miles, which if you have absolutely no interference, and this is actually true for anybody, you see some of these other companies with 9-mile ratings, that's under idealized conditions like over water, away from cities, where there's no radio interference. So under that basis, we're 6 miles, but practically speaking, I fly this out 2 miles all the time, and I'd say that's a good limit for this. And we, in an urban environment, because of interference with anybody's, DJI, Autel, anybody, your range is going to be limited. We do side by side against those guys all the time and fly equivalent to them in urban settings. And how far you can go in a city like Los Angeles just depends on where you are and how many Wi-Fi signals are coming out of the nearby office buildings, et cetera. So you can get more or less in an urban environment, but we feel confident that we compete well against things like the Mavic and Skydio and all the rest of them. Everyone's kind of in the same place.
And then flight time, we talked about it being 30 minutes. I'll just reiterate that so we don't spend more time on it. But flight time is also a thing that has variables in it. And 30 minutes is like a pretty strong 30 minutes from Teledyne FLIR, which 35 minutes or 40 minutes from another manufacturer could be idealized situations or circumstances.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Because we're running up on time, I'm trying to look through these to get like ones that are repeated or just
frequently asked.
Yeah, to give us a good wrap up of the whole thing. And I guess they're kind of all over the place, so I'll just go for one of them. Okay, so when it comes to how Teledyne FLIR is standing by the product, warranty is one thing that there's a few questions about it actually. And it's a simple question, but how long is the warranty? And then are there plans or any movement for extended warranty options like are becoming more prevalent in with other drone manufacturers?
What the warranty is 1 year, and we are not considering an extended warranty. But I think other companies that might be interested in offering insurance products around SIRAS. So there's discussions around that, but so far nothing that we're ready to announce. But 1 year is the standard warranty.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry that was kind of like a very like a slow ball question to wrap it up. But guys, they're seriously like the engagement was great. We have 59 more questions in here. I'll do the work of putting them together as a cohesive like FAQ. I'll work with Kelly and the team to get answers. We'll send those out to everybody that participated. If you want to revisit the content, I know that Teledyne is going to host this on their YouTube within the next 24 hours. That is kind of the commitment that is generally made. So
I think at the beginning we were supposed to say this is being recorded, so and that's why, so we can make it
the webinar
available.
said it for us, but
Okay.
it was recorded. We'll get that out to you guys. If you have further questions, you could reach out to Cyrus at DSLRpros.com. You could reach out to Kelly if you have technical questions, but I think that it's maybe better you reach out to me and my team, and then we work through there. So my email is Randall, RANDALL at DSLRpros.com. If you have any questions, concerns, want to schedule a demo, want to get a quote, want to share feedback for what you'd like to see in the future, all of that stuff, you feel free to send us either Cyrus at DSLRpros.com or to myself, Randall at DSLRpros.com. You can reach out to Teledyne FLIR directly. And the survey that is going to be sent to you once you leave this, please, please, please fill it out. It does help us so much. Anything else you want to say before we get off, Kelly?
No, it was fun as always, and let's
Yeah.
do it again.
Sounds great. All right, see you guys soon. Your questions will be answered, I promise. Just look at your inbox in the next few days. Take care, guys.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.